Hi everyone, it's Kelsey. I had a really interesting experience today with the practices of yoga. So one of the main practices yoga talks about is giving without expectation of anything in return. And that would be true selfless giving. When we have the attachment or expectation of reward in any form, whether it's a thank you or an acknowledgement, it could be anything, then we set ourselves up for suffering. But that one of the paths to freedom is to get out of our selfishness, which means going into selflessness and being generous with our time, with our resources as appropriate. And then we start to become less attached in that. We become less attached to our expectations and our desires and our things. So I go to the market on Saturdays, and there's usually a couple homeless guys around. And so last week, when I went, there was a man, and I saw him on my way out of the market, and he was asking for money. I said, I don't have money, but do you want some fruit? And he declined, and he said, no. And I said, okay. And then I went again today, and he was there. I saw him on the way in this time, and he was asking for money again. And I said, I don't have money to give you, but I can get you some food if you want. And so my first opportunity to practice this non-attachment was when he said, okay, great, I want a smoky. And I'm pretty sure that's like a thick hot dog type thing. And it's not something I would typically consume nor offer to somebody else. And in that split second, I was able to just have acceptance that he gets to choose. And that was a really beautiful moment where I just thought, okay, I offered, and he asked for what he wanted. And so it is. So I went to the market, and there was a line to get into the market itself. And there was another man also. He had a sign that said, can you give me money so I can eat? And I said, I don't have money to give you, but I can get you something to eat. And he asked for cherries. So cherries are the high ticket item in the market. And my mind went to, of course he has to pick the most expensive thing. And I just laughed at myself, because again, I thought, well, you offered, and that was, that's what he wanted. And, at this point, you do have the resources to be able to do that. And I like cherries. I understand why someone offered food would ask for cherries. And so it was a really fun moment. And so I went into the market, and I got the cherries and my things, and there's no cooked food, so I couldn't get the first man his item. But I did find something. It was a little empanada, and from a Chilean place, really lovely lady. And so I went outside, and the cherry guy was right out there outside the door waiting, and was just so delighted to have his cherries. And I was so delighted to share them, because he obviously has the same love of cherries that I do. So it was just a beautiful moment, sharing that love of cherries with another very excited human being. And then I went, and the other guy was gone. And so that was another moment then to practice that not hanging on to the fruits of action. So I went, I spent my time, I spent my money, and I'm gonna actually backtrack there. I spent time and I spent money. None of it's mine. I have to say that. So I spent time and I spent money, and the guy was gone. And so great, I could have gotten resentful. I could have said, all sorts of negative things about him in my head. And I just thought, okay, well, who else is going to get this today? And it most likely is going to be my brother. So it was just a really interesting, fun time taking the yoga philosophy and putting it into daily life, and just practicing letting go of those attachments, practicing interacting with human beings, and allowing for the ebb and flow of resources and time and attention, all sorts of things. And one of the key practices of yoga is dan, which means to give and to share. And so whether that's a certain amount of money on a monthly basis, whether it's donating your time, or whether it's feeding people. And I had read recently, I forget where it was, but that dan, one of the most powerful forms of dan is to feed people, or one of the most important is to offer food to the people who need it. And so, I was just sitting here now home eating my lunch and thinking, when I go back next week, what if that guy's there again who wanted the food and then disappeared on me? What would I do? Would I hang on to that memory that he asked for and I did it, and then it didn't show up? Or would I treat it as a brand new moment and make an offering and again, practice that non-attachment? And it's just a really fun practice. So again, that taking these principles and the philosophy of yoga into our daily life is how we little by little start to use every little interaction to start to have some freedom. And the thing is that as we do this, then we start to have a greater sense of self, we start to have more confidence, we start to have less attachment, more freedom and more peace. And from what I hear, that's what a lot of people are looking for. So I can't stress enough that these teachings, they help us sort through life in ways that make it a little easier for us, so we don't have to bumble around as much. Challenging, not easy all the time. It's not always, I haven't always responded as well to being stood up and having requests to buy someone expensive things as gracefully as I did today, but today I did, and it was a really beautiful time. So I just wanted to share that because, again, sharing food with people, doesn't have to be homeless people. It can just be people who are busy. Maybe you take a friend a meal who's stressed out, or someone who enjoys your cooking or who doesn't enjoy cooking themselves. Maybe you offer them something. And then also just looking at, where am I making an offering in any form, whether it's my time, my attention, or things, and expecting something in return. And see what happens if you just decide to give just for the sake of giving, if you just decide to love just for the sake of loving. And that's what creates these beautiful ripple effects, which then heals society. Because I feel that we're where we are today, notably because of the selfishness that most of us have fallen into. So the process of yoga, the process of living, is an opportunity to start to walk out of that. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. Namaste.